What's better than earning money from a 9-to-5 job? It's earning money while you sleep, which is made possible if you start investing. You're listening to the Real Estate Investing Demystified with your very own dynamic duo, Ava Benesocky and August Biniaz. Tune in as we discuss everything real estate, both on the passive and active sides. We feature life-changing stories of today's real estate leaders that will help build your own roadmap to success. This is a show that will lead you to a diversified portfolio, a much bigger revenue, and a next-level venture that brings you a smooth cash flow. Let's get this episode started. All right, welcome back, everybody, to Real Estate Investing Demystified.
Ava, you didn't jump the gun like you usually do. The second I say one, you already start talking.
I get really excited on
editing team has a really difficult time to cut it out right where that is. But
I get real excited. I don't know what else to say.
Fine. I love your enthusiasm about life, about business, about everything on it. Really, it's what gets me going. So, yeah, exciting times in our lives. As our listeners have and people who watch our YouTube show know that we brought on a partner, an acquisition director, Paul Hopkins, and he's been hard at work. He is amazing. And when you're involved in deals on daily basis and involved in the underwriting and the deal flow and meeting with brokers and sending out letters of intent.
And my favorite part, the negotiations.
Back and forth. And we have a bit of leverage as buyers. I mean, over the last a decade, the ball has been in the seller's court because they've had leverage over buyers because it's been in the up market. But now where the market has slowed down, rents have decreased 7% year over year in multifamily. Transactions have dropped 70% in multifamily in the past year. So we have leverage now over sellers.
We're excited to be on the buyer side.
We're excited to be on the buyer side. And other than that...
and just one thing I wanted to mention is prices have actually gone down a little bit. So investors are lining up, like calls are coming in, and it's been really quite interesting to watch what's going on right now because our phones are off the hook right now. Investors are wondering what's going on because there's some pretty awesome discounts out there.
Yeah, so we have some savvy investors because they're watching the market very closely as well. Right. And the sentiment was definitely down over the last year, but now they're actually getting calls from investors saying, hey, is there any deals or what's happening? We want to get back. In my opinion, we're in this Goldilocks stage right now where we're still in an increasing interest rate environment. The Fed is probably going to raise the interest rates another 25 basis points, just like they did here in July.
Yeah.
I feel that a lot of dry powder sitting on the sideline. I've been talking to a lot of different groups and brokers and what have you. And as soon as the Fed starts, tapering off and not raising the rate anymore, there's going to be the flood of.
It's going to be go time. Everybody's going to come in
because it's no longer going to be a discovery of where should prices be, and people can underwrite deals more, with confidence. Now it's been really difficult when the Fed has raised interest rates 11 times, 10 times consecutively, and a pause and another time in July. All right, so let's get to our show, and we have a guest on, and we would like to go ahead, Eva, if you might.
I would love to go ahead because actually, Aileen actually interviewed me on her show, and now we have the pleasure of her being a guest on our show.
And we'll put the information to her show so people want to go check it out. They can do that at the show notes.
Absolutely. But guys, today we're joined by Aileen Prak, okay? Aileen Prak is a real estate investor and the co-founder of Bonavest Capital. Her focus is on investing in multifamily syndications, both actively and passively, across different markets in the U.S. So Aileen is also the co-host of the weekday podcast, How Did They Do It? Real Estate, where they have interviewed over 600 real estate experts.
Wow.
So she's going to have a good time being on the other side of the mic today. So we believe this interview with Aileen will bring great value to real estate investors looking to scale their business. Welcome to the show, Aileen.
Welcome.
Happy to have you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Yeah, we're really, really excited to interview you today. Maybe we can please start off by tell us about your background and then how you got your start in real estate.
Sure. So my family comes from, they immigrated here to the United States. I live in California now, but they came from a country where, they were just coming out of a genocide, a war-stricken country. And pretty much they came and immigrated to the United States without any connections, without any understanding of the English language. And so they really built themselves from the ground up. And from a young age, they always instilled in me about hard work, getting an education, getting a solid foundation. And so that's something that was instilled in me ever since I was little. So I went to school, got good grades, tried to make my parents proud, and then went off to go to university. And then from there, went to go get my MBA, followed the traditional path, and then worked my way and got a job in finance and aerospace. And then to this day, I still work in finance and aerospace, and then worked my way up now into leadership. And so I've been following that path for a while. And for the longest time, I always thought that that was the way that I was going to go. I would retire at 65 working at that company and then continue just down that path without really thinking about other things and other ways that I could potentially get out or create wealth for me, myself, and my family. But all that kind of changed once I had my first son back in 2018. A light bulb had clicked off because at that time, when you're working a full-time job, you get like 3 months of maternity leave, and then you have to go back to work. And so I remember during those 3 months time, you spend every minute with your baby, with your newborn. And then once you have to make that decision to put him into daycare and to leave him with a stranger at such a young age and trust that they're going to care for him as well as you are, as you would if you weren't there, it was a really difficult decision as a parent to do something like that. But we had to make that decision ultimately because both me and my husband worked full time. And so I remember 2 weeks after we had put him into daycare, I get a call from his school, and they said, "You need to come pick him up because he has a fever. He's sick." And at that time, I was working very far away from home. I was commuting. And so van pooling with other people, didn't have a way to get to him immediately. I felt very discouraged and almost like a failure as a first time mom because I couldn't get to him as quickly as I'd want to get to him. And that's when the light bulb went off for me. And I realized that I don't own my time. I have to stay and work here because I need that income coming in. I'm solely reliant on that one paycheck. Same thing with my husband. And I realized that that's not a life that I want to have. I want to be able to work because I want to, not because I have to. And so that sparked the journey of finding different ways to create passive income for ourselves and for our family so that we can start to remove that dependency from our W-2 income, our full-time jobs, and that we can rely more on ourselves and that we have ownership of our time, so that things like this, if I needed to, I have the option, I have the choice of choosing what I need to do, how I want to spend my time. And so that's how we stumbled upon real estate.
No, I really appreciate what you were discussing, but maybe talk to us about what was the impetus for you to look at real estate in particular, because there's other avenues of creating different sources of income. You could invest in, go to a financial advisor and invest in an index fund and have, some sort of income, or buy a rental property. But what was it about real estate? And you're also involved in real estate private equity in the syndication business. So we're excited to discuss that as well. But talk to us about, and we did some research on you prior to the show. You work for an aerospace company, and your husband works as well. So, the impressions are you're a high income earner. So what was it about real estate that interested you to be involved? And talk to us about that. Yeah, interested to hear.
Yeah. So even as high income earners or people who are working at what's perceived as a stabilized job, the issue with that is that you're dependent on somebody else handing you a paycheck. And so they can make a decision at any time to take away that paycheck from you without any reason or any fault of your own. And so having that reliancy on
sometimes the economy too. So the economy,
right, the economy.
Away, yes.
Yeah. And we saw during COVID times, high income earners like doctors, lawyers, accountants, people in those industries that had very solid jobs, they lost them at that time too, because the market changed and things had happened. And it just so happened that they no longer were needed in those areas. So for those unforeseen events, I wanted to remove that dependency, make sure that I have other sources of income. And so like stocks or index funds and things like that, although it was very common, but for me, I never really fully immersed myself into it. I never fully understood it, only because I didn't have the control over it. There was a lot of moving parts and a lot of outside factors that would weigh into the valuation of the company, how you make money. You could be up so much in one day and the next day it could completely tank. And I didn't like that feeling of lack of control over my investments. And so for me, it felt very risky to do something like that. So I minimized a lot of my investments in stocks and bonds. But with real estate itself, it's a tangible asset. If anything else fails, I have an asset that still holds value. I understand that you can rent out the property, you can collect your income and your rents. There's expenses that you need to pay. And so whatever's the net between that, that's how much you take home from profit after you pay your mortgage and your interest rates. So the model itself was very simple. And so for me, that was something that I could control, something that I could manage, and it made sense to me. And then you can always also, with multifamily especially, I found that you can also treat it like a business, and now you can actually impact the valuation of the property, and it's not just based off of comparables and the market rate. And so that's why for me, that's why it made so much more sense, and the light bulb just clicked off, and I'm like, this is what I've been looking for.
Amazing.
That is an amazing story. Eileen, talk to us about syndication. When and how did you learn about syndication?
So for syndications, I actually started with single family homes first. I live in California in a market that you don't really cash flow. And so I had actually started looking outside of California and finding a different way to invest. And so when we did that, we started, we bought a couple of single family turnkey properties. I had a property manager outside of California to help us manage those properties. And then we started networking with other people as we got more and more involved in real estate. And we came across syndications. And when we heard that term, it was something unfamiliar to us. We never had our people, like our network or friends and families, none of them had ever invested in something like that. We've never heard the term. And so we started deep diving into it, started listening to podcasts, started reading a lot of books, started talking to other people and networking and just trying to understand, what is this model? I didn't understand that you could purchase an apartment building and that was actually owned by regular people, other investors similar to myself, and they just pooled their capital together, their expertise together in order to purchase this property and this project. And so that model really interested me. And so that's how I learned about it. And for us, we wanted to have a proof of concept first because we didn't understand, we didn't fully trust it just yet because it was such a new model, a new way of thinking. So we wanted to invest with a sponsor that we had trusted, that someone that we had made a good connection with
Before we
first.
get into that, a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
You talked about networking. Tell us about how did you go about networking? Like, was it meetup groups? How did you go about it?
Yes. So at that time, we were going to meetup groups all locally around our area, just trying to get out there, talk to other people, see what they were doing. There were some meetups in different counties that we were just driving to, trying to find as many as we could. And that's how we started to build out our network and just learn about what other people were doing in real estate.
I really love the story about syndication. When you heard about the word syndication, you took a deep dive into it. When August first heard about syndication, I'll never forget like walking by his office and he was so excited. And we've been both in real estate for 16 years and 10 years. And he was so excited about this new kind of business concept. And I was like, what are you so excited about?
Yeah, I've never heard that phrase before.
Yeah.
And I always felt like as real estate investors, we're limited by how much equity we have access through either ourselves or joint venture partners. I never knew this idea of going through the members of the public and raising capital and buying real estate. And there was a certain demographic of investors that actually seeked out sponsors or general partners like us to be able to invest with because they saw, because this type of investing was much more lucrative than investing in stocks and bonds and the traditional way of investing. And
that's right. And you were already closing on bigger deals at that time too, right? Just with
yeah, it wasn't a
GLP.
It was not a GPLP structure. I always associated GPLP structure with large groups like Blackstones of the world.
That's right.
So for me, it was definitely life changing the moment I heard about syndication.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, amazing. Go ahead. Were you gonna?
No. I think the next question I was going to ask you was, you started investing passively, right? So what was your first investment, if you don't mind us asking?
Like multifamily, was it value add?
Yeah.
Where was it? All that stuff.
Yes. So it was a multifamily value add property in Colorado Springs. And we had connected with another sponsor that we started actually through the podcast as well. And so we heard them for quite some time before we reached out and started connecting and networking and trying to figure out whether or not their values aligned with ours. Are they going to protect our capital? And then doing that whole vetting process before we decided to move forward with an investment.
It's amazing you say that because your mind is still fresh as an investor coming into a space, in this space, you're still a bit hyper cautious. And the first thing you say, and you said it now, is does your values align with the sponsor? This is your fiduciary. This is somebody who's making all the decisions on the behalf of the investors. And the trust had to be built, and then, you had to do that research. But that's amazing, because we have a lot of people on our database who've been there for a long time, and they're not pressing unsubscribe. They're opening our emails, and that trust is being built. And we had an investor invested with us after 2 years of watching us, and he said that. He's like, hey, I've been watching you guys grow, and I finally felt comfortable enough to come and invest, because
it takes time.
This
It's people's hard-earned money, and they really need to feel that comfort.
And this type of investing is a bit different than partnering up with someone to buy a short-term rental property that you can feel and touch. In LP investing, you're really trusting the GP, and you're signing a 200-page document saying that you have no say. They make a decision of when to sell, when to refi, and there's so much trust that goes into the general partner's hand. But so maybe go ahead, Ava, if you like.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, after the first passive investment that you made, at what point was it that you decided, hey, this is really incredible, I want to kind of make a business out of this myself, with your husband, I believe.
As a GP, basically, as a potential sponsor.
Yes. So after that first investment as a limited partner, we invested in several other opportunities as well as limited partners. And so as we started to network some more and we started to build out that space, we realized that not only do we like the model of syndication itself, but we also like the community and the people that we were meeting within real estate and syndications. And we really wanted to grow that network and really surround ourselves with the people who we thought were like-minded and people who could continue to help us grow and think bigger, and, surround yourself with people who are doing bigger and better things so that you can follow along and that you can continuously push yourself and grow too. And so the more we surrounded ourselves, we started to think bigger, and we started to realize that, we were only limiting ourselves based off of our own fears, our own limitations that we put on ourselves and what we didn't understand. And so as we continued moving forward, we realized that, oh, hey, we can actually probably do something like this ourselves as well. We can probably do something a little bit more actively as well. So we decided, let's start our own podcast and just continue to build out that network first. This was before we even got into the general partnership space. We wanted to grow that network and to build up, the foundation and to get our names out there, because at that point, we still felt very new to the space, still felt very beginner. And so we wanted to build our education and really go into it with an understanding and really build that foundation and knowledge base first before we made that leap into a general partnership, because it is a huge responsibility when you start taking other people's money and operating and using it. So we wanted to make sure that we had that solid foundation, that we understand, we had a proof of concept, we could care for their investment as if we would care for our own. And so that's how we kind of got started, was building out our network through the podcast, started networking, learning from other people. We got a couple of different coaches as well. And then the opportunities started to rise.
I was going to say, actually, the multifamily fraternity space is such a tight-knit, kind of close space. Everybody knows everybody. So I love that you were like, we got to surround ourselves with these people, because really everybody in this space is so enthusiastic. They're so amazing. They're such incredible people to be around. But I wanted to talk about the coaching program.
Well, the ones that survive, right? So if you're a people person, if you're scrupulous, if you're adding value to others, the cream rises to the top, right? And they're the ones who survive and do better in this business. So they're a great group of people. We love going to conferences. People get shocked on how many people we know at conferences.
That's right, because we also like surrounded ourselves with all these people, met everybody in Canada and the US, and it's been really incredible. But you mentioned coaching, right? And this is something that a lot of new people that want to break into the space ask us about, like, hey, where should I begin? And we always say, begin with a mentor, coach.
And in retrospect, that I would say that's probably the biggest mistake we ever made, is not getting a mentor or coach. And we really had to do it through blood, sweat, and tears.
I was relying on August to be my coach,
I was relying on her. You were the CEO of the company. I was relying on you to be the coach. All right.
But talk to us about that, because again, everybody's always asking, like, coaching, mentorship programs, what do I do? How do I begin?
You went the other direction. So maybe give your feedback of, is it worthwhile to get a coach or a mentor in this space?
So making that decision to get a coach, I would say was the best decision that we had made. But prior to getting to that point of making the decision, it was a little bit challenging because you had to shift your mindset a little bit because a coaching program is not cheap. And so you have to invest quite a bit of money in order to get a good coach as well, too. So you want to make sure that you pick someone who you really believe in and who you feel like they're going to provide the most value to you, and that you can take what they're going to learn or what they're going to teach you and you can apply it to yourself. And so we didn't take that coaching lightly. We really evaluated. We looked at who did we look up into the space, and then who did we want to model ourselves after, and who did we want to learn from. And so when you think about it, when you go to college and you go to university, you're spending tens of thousands of dollars on your own education there. And then when you grow up, you spend money on buying a car, you spend money on other luxuries and things like that. But then you don't really think about investing in yourself and your own knowledge. And so for us, we're like, well, it makes sense for us to invest in ourselves because we can just grow that much faster. We don't have to learn everything on our own. We can leverage and we can utilize and learn from their past mistakes and really help us propel us forward and not having to fail along the way and try to prevent a lot of the mistakes that new people might potentially make and bridge that gap a lot faster. And then so that's why we decided to get into a coach and mentorship program. And then that really helped us continue to build our mindset further and strengthen that part up because that was a huge part of our learning curve and our growth.
Nice.
Are you at liberty to say who the coaching was with?
Sure. It was with Joe Fairless.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he is definitely
cool.
not cheap. Yeah, for sure.
Joe's awesome.
Awesome. So great.
All right. Yeah. You know what? I wanted to dive in. If you could talk to us about your first syndicated deal and talk to us about the trials and tribulations.
Yes. So the first, as you mean as a general partner?
Yeah, as a general
partner. Yes, please. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So for the general partner, we'd actually, through our podcast, we had connected with another individual who we found to be, we really had a good connection on the podcast, and we had wanted to learn a little bit more. And so we had some follow-up calls after that. We set up some time to talk and to really start to build up that relationship and to understand and see whether or not that partnership would work or like what that would look like. Had more conversations and seeing how we could add value to each other.
The person who was a guest on your podcast? You said
yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay.
Yes. And so we felt like we had a good connection. So we're like, oh, let's just continue to connect offline. We didn't really think that we would do a deal together, but we're like, oh, we do have a strong connection. We feel like, let's learn a little bit more about each other. And so we set up a couple of meetings. We started talking a little bit more and see how we can add value to each other. And it turned eventually over time that they invited us to, help with a couple of different things on their deal. And so that's how we were able to join in our first general partnership, was bring in some capital, help with some of the due diligence side of things, learn alongside with an experienced operator. And that was a fantastic partnership. And we were super grateful that we had that opportunity to get in.
Amazing. Any difficulties that came along the way? Any stories you can share? Or was it smooth?
No, it was challenging because at the time it was one of the first, because it was the first GP deal. It was the first time we were raising capital for another group as well. And that part was challenging because it was a different mindset that you had to think about when you were raising capital. Because when you're going to raise capital for the first time, at first it seems like, oh, am I asking people for money or am I bothering people? Like, I don't want to feel that way and things like that. And so it was hard and challenging because we're like, oh, we don't want to impose on our network or like the people around us and just think that we're selling, quote unquote, selling something. But what really changed our mindset and what really helped us for that first deal was our mentor and coach had told us, it's not really about selling something. You're not selling anything. You don't need to convince people to buy into what, the opportunities that you have. It's really, you are attracting people who want to have access to the deals and opportunities that they might not have otherwise. And so you're providing a service to them. And that was another light bulb that clicked off. And I'm like, that is so true, because without us, they might not have those opportunities. They won't have those presentations and the deals that we have access to. And so we're helping them grow their wealth. And when we change our mindset to think about that, it helped us so much further along through the rest of our career.
I think a lot of people that start out in this business feel that way, right? And
yes.
You're providing them with something amazing. Like, this is a private alternative investment for them. So if anything, they're going to be grateful. Love that you guys pivoted that mindset.
Especially for people who've never invested as an LP before in a real estate syndication, to give them exposure to U.S. multifamily. In our case, in Canada, 15% average annualized returns are unheard of. So, it may be in a development high risk deal, yes, but on a cash flowing deal from day one, value add deal, it's not really possible because the cap rates are so compressed. But for U.S. investors as well, 15 million accredited investors in the U.S. and a lot of sophisticated ones do invest in syndicated deals. But yeah, we've had investors who come from other larger firms and have invested with us. But so your main focus, so now you've started your firm. What is your firm's mandate? You guys invest in multifamily?
Yes, we primarily invest in multifamily value add.
Value add.
Value add. So multifamily is the asset class, value add is the business type, and what regions?
So we primarily focus in the Las Vegas area. We have some deals in the Carolinas as well, but our primary focus has been in the Las Vegas area.
Got it. Got it. And I think in one of the interviews, I heard something about Florida. Do you have an investment in Florida as well?
Not as a general partner, but we have invested as a limited partner in Florida.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, awesome. And you focus on institutional assets, 100 plus doors, or do you guys invest in smaller deals as well?
We've been focusing primarily on the smaller doors at this time.
Okay, awesome. So let's switch the conversation. Go ahead.
I was going to say, let's switch the conversation. Yes. Our favorite thing to talk about because...
Well, definitely not favorite, but it's exciting to talk about.
We're husband and wife, and we have a good dynamic working together. And so I'm his boss.
Good. Our dynamic is tremendous to be able to spend 24 hours a day with you and for us to still have lasted. But yeah, we want to switch the conversation a bit. In our research on you, we noticed that your husband is also your partner. Yeah. So we wanted to explore that dynamic, how it is. We have an associate of ours who's a brilliant guy, but who's frankly he's handcuffed by his wife, and basically he's going to be a prisoner of the W-2 job for the rest of his life, because it's just not there. The mindset.
The mindset is totally different, right? If you have an entrepreneur on one side, and then the other side is like, no, they believe in that 9 to 5, and the 9 to 5 is stable and how
it's safe
and how
and
dare you
went to school and you worked so hard. Why would you want to leave this? You have something perfect.
So it can be really difficult for couples that are together that have a complete different outlook on doing this. But it sounds like you and your husband have been able to come together and get excited together and want to build together, which is what August and I have done, and it's been amazing, and tremendous is the word you used. So I would love to hear more about your guys' dynamic and how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. I think within a marriage or a relationship, even though if two people have different ways of wanting to walk their life, but they have ultimately the same goal, the same vision for what it would look like in the future, as long as each person is willing to support the other person and to do what it needs to take to help the other person continue to grow, get to where they want to be, so that they ultimately can end up at the same place. I think that's important, because when we first started in real estate, me and my husband were not at the same place essentially, but we both knew that real estate was good, but I was more invested in it. I was more like, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. And I told him, if I can get you on board, we can grow so much bigger, so much faster together than if I had to do it all alone. And so he was always supportive of me and did whatever he needed to do in order to support me. But it wasn't until later on where he got really into it as well. And he started to see the value of it. He started to see the proof of concepts, and he realized and understood after a little bit too, that this is the path to that we can utilize for reaching our financial freedom, to our time independence and things like that. And so for us, especially in the beginning when we were growing the business together, it was really challenging because one, you're always talking to each other as a husband and wife. We never had to work together in a business capacity before. And so we were overstepping each other's boundaries quite often. And I would always ask him, like, where are you with this? Have you done this yet? And there was a lot of tension in that space because he took it personally as well. And at one point, we got to a point where we had to have a sit down conversation. He says, I really need you to tell me when you're wearing your wife hat and when you are talking to me about the business and wearing your business hat. And I said, oh, okay, because depending on which hat you're wearing, you perceive the information that you're receiving differently at each time.
Ava just wears her drill sergeant hat all day,
all day long.
Yeah.
Yes.
Keep going, though. Keep going.
Yes, and so
really good points, and it's nice that he sat you down and had that conversation with you. But please, yeah, keep going.
Yes, because the communication started to break down after a little bit, and we started to have a little bit of tension. And when we're having tension and we're not in the same space, if we're not happy and if we're not wanting to move forward, it's so easy to just give up and to walk away from something that's hard. But having that communication and open communication and really working through it with it together, it made it so much easier to continue to talk and to be able to make the business sustainable. And so once we delineated and we defined our roles and responsibilities, it made things that much easier to work together. And now I would say he's more in it than I am. He does all of our acquisitions, our due diligence, and he does our loan placements and things like that. And so we're in a good place at this time. Yeah.
That's amazing. And you know what? It's really exciting to wake up next to somebody where you're both like super passionate of building something together. We pretty much talk real estate all day long, but on Friday nights it's date night, and I tell him to put his phone away, and it's our time together.
And if there's a disagreement at work, I sleep on the couch. Isn't that,
but yes, it becomes an integral part of your lives, and it's not that we separate it, not that it's because we enjoy it so much, and it just becomes something that it's another thing that we have in common now.
Got it.
It can be really powerful.
So
and it's nice for the kids, like for you guys as kids to see as well, right?
For sure.
Yes.
Awesome. Before the next segment of the show, let's talk about macroeconomics. Let's talk about, what's happening with the real estate market, with the debt market. Are you guys currently in acquisition mode? Are you looking at deals? Are you underwriting deals?
Yes. So we did close on a 34 unit couple last month, actually. And so thank you. So we're continuously underwriting deals, looking for deals, and putting it on offers. But of course, a lot of the deals don't pencil out as nicely as, they had in the past, but there are still deals to be found. It's just, you need to turn over more and more rocks and do those more and more underwriting and getting more deal flow in.
Got it. And what is your prediction? Do you feel, Las Vegas market has somewhat, the prices did go up, but it's a somewhat of a capricious market because with COVID there was a lot of decline of tourism, and then the market did go up, and now it's tapered off and came down a bit. Are you guys opportunistic within that market? How do you feel long term about Las Vegas or Nevada?
Yeah, so we still feel opportunistic about the space. There's a lot of new businesses, headquarters that are moving into Las Vegas. I know during COVID time, the market was heavily based on tourism, but now they've expanded and they've diversified quite a bit from an employment standpoint. And so it's made it a lot more, a more opportune market to be in. And so for us, even though the market, we've seen, a lot of increases in rents in the past, it's starting to stabilize a little bit more now. We're not seeing those large rent growth that we were seeing in the past. But as long as you're continuing to put in that conservatism into your rent growth and what you're projecting it to look like, there's still deals to be found. It's just you have to work a little bit harder. You have to find those off-market deals. You have to be a little bit more creative when you're doing your financing. Some of the things that we had to look at was, seller financing to make the deals work, working with the sellers, looking at different options on the debt side of things, because otherwise it's challenging in this market to find the good deals if you're not being a little bit more creative.
Got it. And are you guys using third-party property management?
Yes, we are.
And what are those rates approximately for third-party property manager? Like in our space, we in the institutional 100 plus, we pay around 3 to 4% of the rental income for our property management, and then we pay for the employees and what have you, their salaries. In a smaller unit, when the NOI is not as large, is it similar to larger deals?
No, it's a little bit more expensive. It's the percentage is around like 6-7% for those smaller deals, and then it depends also about how much of that or how much work that needs to be done on that property. And if it's a more of a distressed property, the percentage starts to increase. But that's what we've seen so far is around that 6 to 7%.
That makes a lot of sense because single family homes, it's around 10 to 11% for one property.
10 to 12 even in some cases.
Sure.
All right, amazing. Let's thank you so much for sharing. Your transparency and sharing your background and starting this business. And we invite people to reach out to you, people who are working for aerospace companies who want to learn more on how to have. Now, is the plan for you guys to leave your employment fully and run a real estate private equity firm, or what is the plan long term?
So we're in a really nice position right now where we've gotten to a point in time where we have been able to make that choice to stay in our jobs just because we want to stay in it and not because we have to stay in it, versus in the past we had to depend on the W-2 income, the work, that salary income every 2 weeks or whatever like that. But now we've created and generated enough income passively and through acquisitions and things like that, where we can make that choice now. But for us, we do enjoy what we're doing, and it's been able to fuel and to help us expedite the journey a little bit more by continuing to work and doing both things at the same time. And we're able to manage it, and we're enjoying both sides of the business at this time.
Okay.
The best part is to have that freedom.
Yes.
I love it. Okay, let's go to the next segment of our show, the 10 championship rounds to financial freedom. So I'm going to ask you a list of questions, whatever comes top of mind. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, let's do this.
She looks ready. So. Don't mess around, Ava.
She's ready. All right, first question. Who's been the most influential person in your life?
I would say my parents, because of their background and what they've been able to achieve, starting from nothing to building up to where they are today. They are people that I really embody and want to, make proud, and to, I truly find them as an inspiration.
Nice. I love that.
Nice.
All right, second question. What is the number one book you'd recommend? And it doesn't have to be real estate.
So I really like the book Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. When we read that book, it really changed the way we thought about our business and what was important on finding the who's in your lives to help you get to where you are, not necessarily the how to get there.
I love that book. I say it all the time. Who not how, baby, when it comes to cleaning and doing everything, right?
Yeah. I'm like, babe, is lunch ready? You're like, who not how? I'm like, you were making lunch.
Okay, next question. If you had the opportunity to travel back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
Don't let your self-imposed limitations hold you back from thinking bigger, because we ourselves put a limitation on ourselves just based off of, the environment around us and what we think is possible. But once we're able to get past that, there's so much more opportunities out there, and we can just grow so much bigger and faster if we're able to move past that and think about, what we are capable of instead of holding ourselves back.
Great advice.
So true.
Great advice.
So true. Okay, next question. What's the best investment you've ever made?
The best investment I think that first syndication as an LP partnership, as an LP investor, because that really set the stone and started rolling us and really got us into the space. And we wouldn't have gotten to where we are today without that first step.
Nice. Now, what's the worst investment you've ever made, and what lessons did you learn from it?
The worst investment is a little bit challenging. We've gotten close to investing in things that might have turned out really poorly. I would say maybe not the worst investment, but the most challenging one that we've had to date so far is probably the one that we're currently operating on, a master lease project, only because there was so much more risk involved as we got into it. There were so many more things that you didn't think about as you were getting into it, and so many things that were uncovered, and it was just so much more challenging and so much more work than we were expecting to do. And that one, we're probably not going to do some type of master lease again going forward, but it was definitely a place where you cut your teeth and you really had to get down and dirty and really work those hard and challenging issues.
Okay. Next question. How much would you need in the bank to retire today? What's your number?
Oh man, that's challenging because everybody's number is so different.
That's right. It is.
But I don't think you necessarily need to have like a large number in your bank account, but as long as it's invested in different opportunities and different investments, and they're all generating cash flow for you and you're bringing that in, I think that's more important than having a large lump sum sitting in your bank.
Brilliant.
Living off of passive income.
Brilliant answer.
Yes.
Brilliant answer. It's kind of a trick question, but most
you did really
syndicators pick that up one up. Syndicators, non-syndicators, you just say 50 million or 100 million.
Yeah,
but syndicators, I just need a cash flow, man.
I need cash flow to live off of. That's right.
Okay, cool.
All right, next question. If you could have dinner with someone dead or alive, who would it be?
Dead or alive? I think I would want to sit down with, I think Robert Kiyosaki would be a really interesting one to just sit down and just, because he's such a big person in this space, and we've all read his book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and so really just deep diving and just learning and just listening to his outlook on life, I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah,
Nice.
just don't follow him on Twitter. It might disappoint you because he gets wild every once in a while.
Does he?
I follow him regularly, but he's pretty out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Aileen, if you weren't doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing now? If you weren't doing what you're doing today?
If I wasn't doing
Professionally or with syndication, something out there, we've had all kinds of answers from our other guests.
I don't know. I guess if I never found syndications, I guess I would continue. I would have still been in my W-2 and then just still continue working on that. Just thinking that that's just the path that I would continuously follow, and then not building up that network that I currently have and the friendships that I built along the way.
How about if income wasn't an issue? Like something like, some people would be traveling all the time or have a food tasting YouTube show or something like that. I probably would do that. I'll just be eating the whole time.
You would.
Is there something that inspires you or excites you about life, or something you would have done?
I would actually right now, because my kids are getting to this age where they are needing a lot of time and want to spend with you, and they're hitting all these milestones. So for me, if I didn't have anything else, I would probably want to be like a full-time, just stay at home mom and just help develop them and be with them and, be there for those milestones and things like that.
Probably the most important job in the world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Great. My favorite question, okay? Book smarts or street smarts?
Street smarts. I would definitely say street smarts.
Okay, so with somebody with an MBA, why street smart?
Because you can read all the books that you can, but it's all sitting in your head. But if you don't apply it and you don't use that knowledge, it doesn't go anywhere. I've met several people who have really high education, but they never did anything with that education, and it's just sitting in their knowledge or in their brain, and they've never applied it, to other things in life. With the street smarts, they typically take that information and experiences and what they've learned and really apply it to continue to grow. And so I don't think that you can get that from just being book smart.
Nice. Great answer.
Well said. Okay, last question. If you had $1 million in cash and you had to make one investment today, what would it be?
I would probably find a small multi-unit property that I could just buy and own outright, and then just live off that cash flow and invest that cash flow into something else and roll it over.
Love it.
Talk about somebody who's drank the Kool-Aid. She's family all the way.
All the way. All the way,
Amazing,
baby.
Amazing. Awesome. That was great. Thank you so much for providing so much value and answering these questions as well.
Yeah, and Aileen, just let everybody know what's the best way that they can reach you, please.
Sure. They can always email me at Eileen@bonavestcapital.com, or they can always visit and download our passive investor due diligence checklist. It's at www.bonavestcapital.com/checklist.
How do you spell Bonavest?
Bonavest.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Great interview. Thanks again. Thank you for joining us for this episode. We hope this conversation enlightened you on how to win big in this highly profitable and risk-averse space. Get on your feet and embrace this world that offers so many opportunities just waiting for you out there. Continue your journey to becoming a savvy real estate expert by subscribing to the show at cpicapital.ca. Don't forget to leave a positive rating and share with your friends. See you on the next one.